what a talent, what a heartthrob. If I was straight, I'd go for you in a minute. Okay.
We can all say.
Our next talent is Roberta Llewellyn. She'll read from her new fictionalized memoir, Lost Angels Coming Home.
Hello, everybody. I was once a back-to-land person, so this is some of that. Returning to the present moment from reminiscing over the long past days, Sarah reflected on how it had been an unusual autumn. She noted especially the foggy mornings, while the afternoons were blisteringly hot. Global warming was definitely happening, thought Sarah while making tea. She inwardly questioned when the world of politics would catch up with science and cooperate to move the planet toward recovery. Settling into her bed later, she wrote in her journal about what Justine had shared with her earlier in the day. After the fire died down, she could distantly hear the wind stirring up as it gained momentum, coming across the gulch. She finally fell asleep on her bed across the room from the sparkling embers in the stove. The next morning, she moved her bed downstairs. This arrangement had been made, she realized, because she needed to be able to hear sounds during the night. Not for the deer, raccoons, skunks, or stray cats roaming about, but specifically to detect the movement of human males coming around unannounced. She recalled the night she and her children had stayed in the big house, while Jimmy had gone to town to work on the art and craft store being created in a small storefront space in Robertville. She didn't know at the time that Jimmy was actually consorting with the former wife of musician Paul Butterfield. It was eerily quiet after dark when she heard the distant yet distinct sound of a vehicle rattling up the dirt road. She jumped up from her sleeping bag where she'd been dozing next to her kids in the bags on the floor. They all woke up at the sound of the truck. Lily asked, "Is my daddy home?" Taking her flashlight to the entrance, Sarah stood waiting as Cody, their part Doberman fencer, part mud, kept turning around and looking at her, barking with agitation at the disturbance coming within range. "Hi," she called out at the three older, raunchy-looking men who got out of the truck. She could barely make them out in the dark, but the rising full moon cast some light where they were standing. They looked to her as though they were up to no good. She quickly noted that one of them held a six-pack of beer. "Rednecks, ready to party," she registered. Fully grasping the men's drunkenness, her heart sped up. Their coarse, nervous laughter assaulted her, as did the smirks crossing their faces. One of them called out, "Hey, where's your old man?" He laughed a funny, weird kind of laugh, which clued Sarah in to his already having seen Jimmy in town that night. They must have known she was alone. Cody kept barking so she could barely comprehend what one of the men asked. "Can we come in and get a smoke?" The man's callous expression and swagger alarmed her. They were coming closer. While managing to control Cody and contain her own reaction, she called back loudly, "I don't have any cigarettes, but Dan, the man staying over there in the trailer," she turned slightly, pointing in the direction of the road, which was pitch black, further saying, "He probably does. Just go give a knock on his trailer door." She struck a bold posture, bluffing and blustering, because no one was staying in the trailer beyond the trees. She prayed this strategy would work. The men looked confused, and they shuffled their boots in the dirt and shrugged as they moved slowly back to the truck. Sarah could feel her heart pounding under her night clothes. She walked into the house where the kids were all huddled under a blanket together. She grabbed the rifle off of the fireplace mantle and positioned herself in a chair at the door with the rifle across her knees. Not knowing if it was loaded or not, she believed she could at least scare the shit out of those 500 men if need be. Cody kept barking until the sound of the truck could no longer be heard driving down the road. Still feeling shocked by this encounter years later, Sarah half smiled at her nerve and how she had shouted back with feigned bravado and credible exasperation, as if to say, "How dare you men come here to my home so late at night?" It had been one of the earlier incidents compelling Sarah to demand Jimmy's presence that night, and finally became one of the powerful memories she listened to as an omen to leave the wilderness home. Fortunately, Jimmy took her seriously. Canyon friends had a homecoming party for them at someone's house in Berkeley. She remembered sitting on the kitchen floor talking to a tall, lanky woman who wore glasses and had nondescript blonde hair falling casually over her shoulders and down her back. The woman appeared to be curious about and interested in Sarah. She sat with her arms around her knees on the floor, making eye contact, allowing Sarah to feel safe enough to open up. They discussed education and ideas that weren't necessarily popular at that time. The woman seemed to like what Sarah's views were about what was missing in hippie schools like Summerhill and what was being passed off as education. From having been part of the wilderness school on the Lost Coast and having been close to those kids for a time, Sarah felt she had gained some insight into what breaks through the adolescent mask of disinterest. She felt a particular aliveness ignited about education in contrast to how her own had failed her. She believed that the kids did best in structured small group learning experiences. When the woman added groups where the kids are encouraged to express and think independently, they both laughed to see their mutual agreement. She and the woman sat for some time on the floor and enjoyed relating and riffing. Her name, she learned, was Annie Leibowitz. She had already taken photos of the Canyon school kids, which were used in the Canyon cookbook. Sarah still had copies of those cookbooks that had been put together by the students with recipes from their mothers and women in the community. This was in the late 60s, before Annie became the most well-known photographer in the world.